mission. We're starting this one right in the drum laboratory because we're going to be talking about Black Dog today. Black Dog. You know, I was going to do something else today, but I happened to see a couple of videos. I did a Black Dog video once a long time ago, and I kind of taught it in a convoluted way. I have a much better understanding of it now, and I want to teach that. As a matter of fact, if I watched 15 videos, I saw 15 different explanations for how Bonham played Black Dog. So again, what is this channel about? The nuts and bolts. Let's pretend it's Tuesday or a Wednesday. Today is Tuesday, by the way, and you get that call of a band you've been wanting to work with. And on the list, the set list they send you is Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. Well, now you got two choices. If you're not sure how to do that and how to count through those odd meters, you can tell them, I don't want to do that song. That might not put you in regular rotation. Or let me give you some simple hacks, some simple ways to look at it, much simpler than what you hear from some of the other guys, so you could play this song on Saturday night with confidence. Because the mechanics of it are not hard, except for that one kind of fun, crazy fill he does in the middle. There's not really hard mechanics of this. Most of what Bonham does in this, it's just about how you feel it and how you count it, is this. That's really most of what's in the tune. Now, you can think of that as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. However, I think that's incorrect. I think it's better to think of that tune as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the difference for us schooled musicians.
I'm very sorry, but when I want to buy something, I want it the way I want it. Now either you have a motorboat with 3 propellers, or I'll go someplace else.
This is the difference between the feeling of the song, which is a slow 4, or the rhythmical notation of the song, which is really 4/8 and sometimes here and there a bar 5/8, and it makes it much easier to count. And how do you know? Kind of when you listen to them do this live. In the actual playing, they leave those bars at 5/8, but when Plant's doing his a cappella bit, that's cleaned up. And they stay in 4/4. You'll hear a lot of guys say that last phrase of Plant is in 5, but it's not. It kind of is on the record, maybe. I don't think so. I'm going to tell you what I think it is in a second. But sometimes Bonham waits a beat before he comes in. Sometimes he comes in right on the last vocal. It's always different. But what you always hear is this, just before he comes in. You always hear this. That is the cue for the band. That is the cue. One guy said, well, they wouldn't be able to do that live. Well, they didn't do it live. They just kept everything in 4/4, so it was very much in time. But in the studio, they were learning it. Let's listen for a second to some of the rehearsal tapes I pulled off YouTube. Okay, see, they're working it out. So look, I used to do this with my bands on cruise ships. I was a music director. I would have a 13-piece band, show band, orchestra, whatever you want to call it. And when I had maybe a passage that was going to retard and I had to bring the band back in, I would do this. And that was my cue. That would become 1, often 1. I wouldn't make it 5 or 4 or an and or anything like that, right? And this is what Bonham does. he does 1, then 5 notes on the snare. I think if you really want to count it, it's like a bar of 2/8 just before the bar of 4/8. Watch, let me do it. So Plant sings his vocals. Where he comes in, I believe that was feeling on Bonham in the recording. Live, they did not do it that way. In the recording, he felt where he wanted to come in. Again, sometimes he waits, sometimes he doesn't. But this is what I believe he was doing. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Listen again. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, coming in the first time with the bass drum on 2, Bonham did that all the time. He loved to fill over the bar line past 1 and start that phrase on either the end of 2, or in this case, I'm counting it as 2 into 3. You could think of it as this too. You could think of it as 4E and 1E and 2 and 3 and 4. But I think it gets too convoluted as the song goes on to think of it that way, right? Actually, once you get used to playing this, you should just do it from here. You should feel it and not worry about it. Let me play that in tempo so you can kind of hear it. Again. Finally, the last little bit of that verse is your bar 5/8. Watch. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. When they crash that cymbal, that's a hard hit. That is 1. And Plant knows where 1 is because John Bonham just told him. Let me do that quicker. 1. I'm going to do it up tempo in a second, but you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, I hear him do a lot of other stuff in there. Yeah, he does a lot of variations on that, but at least the first time he does it exactly that way. So watch up to tempo. I'll even give you the dee-da, da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. One more time with a variation. Beat up ba ba da 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 ba da. That's one variation with the little triplets on the kick. All right, let's go to part 2, or the second groove he does. All right, so this next groove comes out of that first groove, and it is probably mechanically the most complicated of all the grooves that he does in this particular tune. All right, he's playing the bell of the cymbal. Again, we can count this as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to stay with 1, 2, 3, 4. You do what you'd like. So he's doing this little thing between the snare and the tom, and then he does a little thing between the snare and the bass drum. And he even does it a little bit differently live, but he keeps the second half with the bass drum. So watch, nice and slow. 1, 2, 1. Same thing with that bar 5 at the end. One more time, really slow. Are you hearing it? Watch when I put that up to tempo. That's perfect. That's perfect. Again, you've got those phrases of 4, and then if you keep thinking of that last as a phrase of 5, or you can think of it as just adding an extra 8th note. I mean, Zeppelin did that a lot. And here's the thing, you have also, when you're trying to figure out a tune, you want to look at track record. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, the Beatles aficionados, they could tell you who wrote what part of what song by the chords in that part of the song. They will often say, well, the bridge, these are chords that John would always use, or the verses, these are chords that Paul would always use, because they had a track record. So you can tell, well, the verse was written by Paul, but the bridge is written by John. So even when Paul says, I wrote the bridge, he'll say, no, he probably didn't, because these are really John chords. So when you've got that happening, you can hear in that tune, and you can hear in tunes like the Crunch, in a perverted sort of way, the Ocean, Achilles' Last Stand, them adding that extra 8th note. They liked to do that. They liked to throw that bar of 5/8 in there. They did it often. They did it often. All right, let's go to part 3. Part 3, which is the swing part. All right, let's talk about that final groove. Before we do that fill, I'm going to get to that fill. Let's talk about that final groove. Now, we call it the swing part. Again, this lends itself to my theory that the song really is either 4/8 or 5/8, and there's only a couple of bars of 5/8, rather than 1 and 2 and 4/4, because once you get to the swing, you have to switch over to a double time 4/4 or 4/8 anyway, so better to think of the whole tune that way. Anyway, John Paul Jones is doing the heavy lifting on that swing. He's doing a lot of triplets. So let's talk about the easy way first. The easy way that John plays this, very simple. He starts out with a little hit on the and of 4, or we'll get to this. This is after that fill. I think it's the and of 5. Okay? And it's like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And he's definitely swinging that snare part. It's more like triplet than an and. So let me play that up to tempo. The easy way. Now, he loves to throw in those triplets. Again, do you have to have some of that happening in your playing a little bit? Yes. I use heel toe. Whatever works for you. I'm going to do a whole thing again on the bass drum technique in maybe a week or 2, but this is how that would go. Let's do it slow, and then I'll pick it up to tempo. Let's do that tempo. That's one of the variations he uses. He uses a couple of others, but that's something you want to get to have happen. If you don't have it happening, and if you don't have it happening yet, I can't talk.
Scusi. Che cosa? Peter, what are you doing? Speaking Italian. Peter, you can't speak Italian just because you have a mustache.
Tu sei un pazzo, va via da qui! Sono stanco di te, ti do un pugno nella testa! Ti giro con questa carne!
You can probably still do it the easy way, and the band might not care. They may not care. They're like, oh, you're missing a couple of triplets at the end. Who cares, really? It's fun. It's cool to do. You need to get it down, but you can do without it. All right. I'm going to reset the cameras for a second. We're coming back and we're going to talk about that fill. We're going to talk about that fill. That's physically and mechanically the hardest part of the tune. And if you do that fill at that gig with folks who you've never played with before, they will love you. All right, let's pull that fill out of the tune and just talk about that fill by itself. Let's get that down. This is something that Bonham did a lot. He did versions of this fill all the time in his playing. And depending which video you watch, there's a couple of different versions or variations that people think he did. To be honest with you, it's hard to be 100% sure by the recording, but I'm going to show it to you the way he did it live. And it sounds very much like the way he did it on the recording. And if they're not the same exactly, they're close enough that the band's still going to love you. So, we have, I'm going to count this as 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4. And that's the way I believe it is on the recording too. Although I don't think they do it that way live. Okay, so watch. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But it's quick. So this, rack, floor, kick, you've got to get that down. Again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All right, how does that fit in the recording? This again, my opinion, you hear that stick click. I believe that's 1, or the cue. Then a pause for a beat. So I like to think of 1, he waits for that little 8th note, 2, and then he goes 1, 2, and 4. There's a 5, there's a pause, and then... So let me play it for you in tempo the way I think he does it. Are you hearing it? Are you hearing it? I think that's what happens on the recording. However, when I play this live, I don't do this. I do this. I like better. I think it's more full. So I would do it this way. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? 3 grooves to summarize. You got this. You got this. And finally you got this. Alright, that's Black Dog. I hope you got something out of this. I hope if you get a call for that on gig, you can refer to this. Spread this around because I think this is a good way to do this tune if you're a nuts and bolts guy like me. Alright, I'm going to take you out with that fill and take it out. I'll see you on the next one.